Hello and welcome back to the Point Left podcast with your hosts,
Skyler
and Kaylynne.
Up high this time. I always feel like such a cool badass when I'm like, don't even look.
You have to do the little like wrist flick. I did look.
Ooh, I like that.
That was a good one. That was a good one.
Y'all ready to get sad?
I love how we talk about this all the time. We're like, it's so funny that our podcast is called Point and Laugh.
We had
when
such
there's
high
no
hopes.
laughing.
We had such high hopes in the beginning, and then you could tell as like, you literally watched us mature. Aww. From when I was like 23 to 25. I don't want to talk about that. And we will stop immediately. I'm not finishing that thought, and you can't make me. So last episode was also there's nothing more girly than eating a little snack.
Sorry, I'm having lunch. we have a schedule to
maintain,
adhere to. Yeah.
Anyway, last episode you were like, this was inspired by TikTok, and to be honest, like part of the reason that we took such a long hiatus from filming like these last episodes to our last couple of episodes is because I was really finding it hard to find a topic that I feel like could be a good like bookend to all of like the episodes that kind of like, we've brought forth. This isn't our final one. Like our final one is our next one. This is our penultimate one, which is crazy. So I was like, it can't be something stupid. And so I was like, and like, friends and sometimes family are like, I heard you had a podcast. What's it about? And I was like, I don't know. It's kind of whatever we want it to be about. But I feel like the one constant that I feel like connects all of our podcast episodes together are capitalism is evil, which it's so easy to bring that back to it. Very like college debate room, staple. Mm-hmm. It's that one. It's how does this like affect women personally? The horrors of girls.
Yeah.
And then another one was just about like consumerism. And I was kind of forming the topic in my head, and then almost like algorithmic God was like, ooh, I got a fucking banger idea of a video for you. Everything from my TikTok to my Instagram to my Twitter just kind of kept funneling into this very like idea of mine. I had like a eureka moment. I had to sit up in bed and be like, I've got it. So I'm going to do that thing that like video essayists do where I'm going to start off with a quote from an author. And then you're like, where's this going? So I'm going to kind of break form a little bit and just tell you what this episode is going to be about and then jump into it. So this episode is going to be about the idea of personhood being directly tied to consumption. Personhood equals consumption. What do we think so far? Chuck E. Cheese ticket machine.
Sorry, I'm crunching on carrots. Sorry, what's the question? What do we think? What are our thoughts?
Of personhood equals consumption. Before I scream it at you for a while, is this something that you've noticed? Is this a trend that you've kind of, or like, what are your thoughts now? And then I'll do that teacher thing where I'm like, what do you think about now? And then I'm like, and what do you think about it now, pupil? Mm-hmm.
I feel like we've kind of talked about it a little bit in past episodes. Like it's come up in passing, but I mean, I think especially in like the age of the internet and everything, there's definitely a like commodification of especially like mental illness, which is weird.
I'm getting into that, dog.
Yeah.
Don't you fret.
And it's like if you don't suffer from like a severe mental illness, then like you're a normie and boring.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, this is something that people are like diagnosed with. Like it's not really like a choice. Like I don't understand how that has to do with, but I think a lot of that, tying into your identity, and how that is like made into an aesthetic in certain ways. Mm-hmm. And I think we especially saw it in the COVID age of TikTok, where now it's so weird to see like high schoolers or like people who were in high school during COVID and like their relationship with TikTok versus now. And I've seen a couple videos of people looking back and they're like, oh my God, my like e-girl phase or my like goth phase like during COVID. And it's so funny. But I don't know. I don't really know if I have a opinion per se. It's more just like something I've noticed that, maybe it's like the age of Pinterest. I don't even fucking know.
Oh yeah, that's a good one too.
But just the way that there are now so many aesthetic niches that you can categorize yourself into. And if you don't fit like I mean, you see it on Depop all the time. People are like, oh, look at this like grunge fairy core like crochet, you know, and it's like, what the fuck is fairy core?
None of these words are in the Bible.
It's like, what do you mean? But the way that how you express yourself aesthetically and the things that you own and the products that you use are like who you are as a person. And I think TikTok has totally expanded on that. I think Tumblr kind of played in that a little bit.
Tumblr loved discourse too much to really, because at any given moment you needed to be able to unchain yourself from something if it gained too much Tumblr discourse. I miss Tumblr discourse. It was every man for himself. I loved it.
Yeah, but that's, so I don't really know what my opinion on it is. I don't know if it's good or bad. I mean, overconsumption I think is like always kind of bad. But I don't know. I'm kind of, I'm open. It's like something I've noticed, but not something that I've really like thought too critically on.
All right, that's where Professor Skyler.
Yes!
Back for one night only. So, to start this off, Greg Beale is a religious author, and this is a quote from him in his book, "We Are What We Worship, A Biblical Theology of Idolatry. What people revere, they resemble, either for ruin or for restoration." Essentially, to then quote Taylor Swift immediately afterwards, "You are what you love. What you adore, you absorb." And on the one hand, I love this sentiment. It's like such a romantic thing to say, especially when you're talking about people. Like, what you love, you turn into. The couples who have been together for a while start resembling each other. Your best friend can finish your sentences, etc. But not to be that person, on a podcast no less. But our world is getting lonelier. Every like red pill jackass on Twitter talks about the male loneliness epidemic, that 15% of men today say they have no close friendships, a 5-fold increase since 1990. They'll say it's all women's fault and feminism's fault somehow, but I believe it's just a general human loneliness epidemic that men haven't historically had to face for a while. It's all of us. We are a lonely people. How high are suicide rates? How often are we coming into contact with AI, automated messages, drone delivery services, robots on the phone, communities that only exist behind a screen? I'm feeling very Bo Burnham this afternoon. How many layers of disconnect do we have since the internet convinced us that sincerity is pathetic? How unattached are we to our own bodies with the way that we've been forced to pick ourselves apart? It's gotten to the point where I don't see my body as my own. I see it as a vessel that I can mold using products that I'm constantly being sold. I don't see my face, I see my skin. And then with that, all the products that I can buy and use to benefit that skin. I don't see my hair. I just see my hair as a shampoo, conditioner, haircut, flat iron vessel. I see my body and I see clothes. I see rolls that need jogging out, and clothes that I need to buy to cover it up. I see my room and I see the stuff that I have and the things that I need to replace and what I need to, give off to the thrift store and replace with more stuff. It's this disconnect from ourselves and each other. With that, capitalism. Take a shot.
We can't go an episode without talking about it. Sorry, it's not our fault.
It lives in our minds rent full. It charges us rent to have it be in our minds. But capitalism has come back yet again as the solution for a lack of personhood. If you feel disconnected, join a community of a shared interest, that interest being media, a product, a fashion niche, a musical artist, movies, this one movie. We can fill that void of feeling like not a person by filling ourselves up with what we love. Another quote from, this is like a famous person in fashion, but I just like her quote of Jack, is it Vanek? Let's say Vanek. "You are the books you read, the films you watch, the music you listen to, the people you meet, the dreams you have, and the conversations you engage in. You are what you take from these." And again, yes. But also no. Why? Why must our identities be based on the content we like, on the products that we can consume? All right, now it's pop quiz time. Do you remember a while back we did an episode on sex scenes in the media?
Yes.
Well, not for the first time, by the way. Weeks after we release an episode, I come across a new article that basically spells out everything that I said earlier, making me feel incredibly validated and also makes me feel like I could have just fucking waited a few more weeks and made my life easier by putting all my research into one article instead of doing all the... But whatever. I have Apollo's gift of prophecy. What can I say?
Maybe they're just really big fans.
They're like,
damn, true.
She spits. Anywho, the article that I'm going to refer to right now is from an Italian media website, Scuro. It's called The Puritanical Eye, Hypermediation, Sex on Film, and the Disavowal of Desire by Carly Gnomes. The article itself is, like, incredible. Please read it. I know everyone's like, article in the description, but, like, go read this. I want you to now. They basically say everything that I said in that episode about why we aren't having sex in media anymore, but way more eloquently. They even quote Lindsay Ellis in that article, which is my favorite, like, video YouTuber. So it's perfect. No notes. I could have written it, actually. It's me. I'm Carly. But there's a section in there that I felt was really relevant to this conversation, this idea of consumption becoming our personhood. I also watched like an H Bomber Guy episode about like plagiarism and how you have to tell people when you're quoting what you're quoting. So for the next bit, I'm going to be quoting this article, The Puritanical Eye. The very nature of our existence in the world has shifted to an increasingly isolated and alienated one. So basically, we're all suffering from derealization, and now we can only engage with the world as a series of commodities, as products, as inputs into the steady stream of artifacts and images that we can consume. It's a revolving door of commodification and alienation. Commodification of ideas, of bodies, of feelings, and alienation from ourselves, from our own bodies, and from other people. The way we consume and talk about films and art in this hyper-mediated environment, largely on individualized and individuated digital platforms, by the way, has not only impacted how that media and art is made, but also what types of media and art get prioritized, or what even gets made at all. Can this media be talked about in 240 characters? Can it be distilled down into an easily digestible, uncomplicated binary deciphered in the millisecond of a scroll? Better yet, can it be made into a meme? I never watched Saltburn, but if I were Emerald Fennel, I'd be pretty pissed off that all anyone can talk about in Saltburn is the cum slurp. I get that it's supposed to be shocking, but that's the meme. That's all anyone ever knows about this movie, is that he might have sex on a grave, and that at one point Jacob Elordi splooted into a bathtub, and the other guy went, and that's the movie, because that was the meme. That's what went viral about it. And the entire movie, that's the bathtub cum movie. It's probably about more than that, but I wouldn't know. This constant connection, they say the Matrix. I don't like referring to things in real life as the Matrix. It makes me feel like a conspiracy jackass, but whatever, they say the Matrix, so I'll just say the Matrix. The constant connection to the Matrix, as it were, to a mediated existence, has borne a kind of puritanism that comes with the knowledge that you are constantly being surveilled, documented, that you are constantly in public in some way, being perceived, even when you are in your private space. And they say this is what distinguishes the current youth from generations past. Just the sense that you cannot opt out at any point because your social life is going on at all times, whether or not you yourself are around. As we float astronautically through an increasingly mediated world, ever detached from the corporeal and the emotional realities of not only of others, but of ourselves, we seek pleasure only in the form of the pristine spectacle of consumption, the ecstatic high that comes not from the touch of another human, but the dopamine rush of a retweet, the serotonin hit that comes with recognizing a character or a symbol from your childhood, the euphoria of knowing a thing immediately and uncomplicatedly, that bliss of having the world at your fingertips and being able to curate an experience where you are never challenged, never forced into the discomfort of engaging actively, never shaken from your position as a passive consumer. So that's the whole quote. They ate. The whole thing, the holy shit, they fucking ate. Talking about how we've replaced our like dopamine and serotonin with content, how we've become so in tune with how we're perceived, because we're always being perceived. That content has become that thing that we burrow and we hide into. It's safer to retreat into being a stan, bringing it all the way back to like our first couple episodes about like stan culture. It's easier to engage with stuff all the time to avoid actual complicated feelings or maintaining a personality outside of liking the things that we like. But then with all that, there comes this new consequence. What if that content is problematic? Unclench. I'm not about to go on the cancel culture rant. I'm not going to do that. But I'm going to quote the article again. As control over our own material realities becomes less and less feasible, the last lone place that we believe we can exercise agency is within the landscape of that which we can consume. Right? This has resulted in the consuming public approaching all media and art with a moral imperative. That which we consume must be perfectly virtuous, sanitized of all problematic or complicated ideas and depictions, because it has become the stand-in for our very realities, our very political action as citizens. Consuming has become our praxis. Yeah, so like this desire to exclusively engage with media and art made by, you know, quote, unproblematic artists is a direct result of Americans specifically viewing media consumption as an inherently political act, because that is the supreme promise of Western prosperity and the religion of consumerism, and because it's seemingly all that's left. We've been stripped and socialized out of any real political energy and agency. Our ability to consume is the only thing remaining that's ours in late capitalism. And as a result, it's become a stand-in for the very aspect of being alive today. You know, consuming is activism, it's love, it's thinking, it's sex, it's fill in the blank. When the act of consuming is all that you have left, and indeed the only thing society tells you is valuable and meaningful, that act must necessarily be a moral one, which is why people send themselves down manic spirals deciding who is problematic or not, because for us, the stakes are that high right now. In a derealized existence, completely untethered from one another, but forever tethered to the digital informational magazine of faux reality, we seek anchorage in our ability to judge that which we perceive, that which we consume, these commodities that for us have become the last bastion of political and personal expression. The consumer spectator is convinced that the very act of judging is what proves one's participation in society. Our judgment, our opinion, our digital footprint is all that we're allowed of personhood. Art, media, film, all commodities, in fact, are there to affirm our morals. They must serve as an expression of who we are. And if they're problematic, what does it say about us? What message does that give us as people? This is not going to be me hopping on a podcast mic and decrying, again, about how cancel culture has gone too far, or that we shouldn't be taking a look at things with unsavory elements and we shouldn't be thinking critically about the media that we consume. Hello? I'm not going to do that. I'm not dumb, but yeah. The phrase "just let people enjoy things" has been tainted by people who want to support monsters in power without being called out for it. And yes, a large section of people decrying that something is problematic is because they want only good people in power and they want bad people to be broke nobodies. I understand. I also want that. Nobody wants terrible people to be in charge. But, however, it's true that we just have so little power in this world that what we like is how we're judged. We even said multiple times on this podcast that people need to be aware how they look if they continue to engage with shitty people. Mm-hmm. If you said today, I support Nicki Minaj, I support Kanye West, I still love J.K. Rowling, I still love Mel Gibson as an actor, that says enough to the internet. The internet doesn't know you. They only know your interests. That will be enough to judge you. They don't have time to hear nuance. Bitches hate nuance. They don't have time to hear your reasonings or like your dissertation about how you like their music but not the person, or you like their earlier albums but they fell off. How you only agree with some of that's too much. That's too much talking. It's black and white. You do or you don't. Your interests come with like a laundry list of stereotypes and assumptions. People have already got you figured out based off of one stepping off point. So isn't it safer to like back yourself behind safe, unproblematic things? Isn't it better in the long run to only associate yourself with pure things and to keep anything that raises eyebrows back in the skeleton closet? Mm-hmm. Like the phrase like, yeah, I like this, but it's really cringy, so I keep it to myself. Like, I love this movie, but it has some racy elements in it. I don't want people to judge me if this movie's about racism, has racism in it. It's like, oh, this guy likes Pulp Fiction? Insert stereotypes here. Like, it's honestly, you said the Pinterestification of it all. It's like the collages, how like Pulp Fiction is in here. It'll come necessarily with the three things in the shitty man with bad music taste collage. You got like Marlboro cigarettes over here, you got black coffee over here, you got the word gaslight in the corner over here, you have porn addiction in this corner.
It's interesting. This makes me think a lot about like online dating profiles.
Yeah.
And how like you are, I think, expected to tell everyone else exactly who you are as a person through like 5 images and like 3 prompts. And off of that, you're supposed to figure out if like this is someone who you would be interested in or not. Or I mean, it's even with like social media profiles. Like I think everything is just so curated to create a very specific image, and that is supposed to be indicative of like the exact type of person who you are.
Yeah.
When in reality, like you are so much more than that. There's so many more layers to that. And the internet is interesting, but I feel like it goes further than the internet, right? Because there is a certain way that we judge people based off their appearance as well. And it's like, okay, I can assume these things about you based on the clothes that you wear or the headphones that you use, or
you have blue hair.
Yeah. And it is interesting how much of your personhood just is assumed based off of these like aesthetic things and even interests. And it's like, even when you're getting to know someone, the first couple of questions are like, oh, like what movies do you like? What music are you into? Like it's very interesting things that I think do to a certain extent kind of tell what type of person you are, of just like what interests you have and the way that your brain thinks and consumes and like critiques things. I do think there's a little bit of validity to that, but there's also like, you can't tell how someone is going to like react emotionally to you telling them that like you cheated on them based on what fucking movie they like, you know, like those emotional processes are not going to be shared through your interest, and like your psyche is not going to be shared through your interest. And I think you're right in that we have put so much pressure on that, and that we expect it to say so much about who we are on a deeper level, when like that's just not realistic.
Even like there's again, like they're talking about the only freedom that we're allowed is consumerism, where like even like I don't agree with it at all, but like the fucking conservatives, that every time like so and so goes woke, they even have like an app on their phones where it's like, can I buy this beer? And it's like, no, Bud Light is now associated with whatever, but because they're like show support with your wallet. It's like being able to have the illusion of choice in the free market is how you're like, and that's how I'll make myself be known. What I can buy is the only power that I have, and not buying this and boycotting that people still can't fucking seem to do. What do you mean you can't not spend money? I don't understand. You have to spend money? But yeah, like the idea of boycotting and not buying something and buying something else is like, I'm saying what I believe with my wallet, because what am I going to do? Call my senator?
Yeah.
They can't listen to me.
Well, it does. It feels like that's the only power that we have left, is like, oh, all you care about is how I can contribute to capitalism. So when I stop contributing to that, like, what are you going to do now? And it feels very powerful, even though
Technically, what have you done?
Everything is very nuanced.
Then you were so right earlier that like society at large bullies people into consumerism. Like microtrends and aesthetics are murdering individuality and personal style, by the way. And it's just so draining seeing people walk around basically in like their uniforms. And you're like, if you wear this, like, oh my gosh, this is so, like, imagine still wearing gold jewelry in 2024. If you wear this, like, I'm just going to assume that you're poor. It's like these things that you can take and keep dictate who you are as a person. And, like, even, like, the morning I was writing this, I came across a random tweet. Again, remember I said that the internet was, like, coming together to, like, this was a good episode idea. And the tweet was, it was someone watching like a Vogue YouTube tutorial. It was like Ariana Grande's like, get ready with me. And it had all these products in front of the laptop, like Dior eyeshadows and lip oils and an iced Starbucks in front of them, and like perfumes and this very clean countertop. And the tweet was, being a boy must be so boring. And the top comment was, I hate how y'all base being a woman on consumerism. Womanhood especially, like, yes, it's a problem for us all. It is a problem for us all. But women especially, is twisted into a capitalistic lens. It's being defined by products and of curated aesthetics. Girly things are drinks, outfits, makeup, bows, crafting, liking this, liking that. To be a woman is to throw parties with these products in the TikTok shop. It's to do their hair with this hack available in their bio. It's this product and this movie. And that's, I think, why so many people lost their fucking damn minds when Barbie didn't get nominated for every Oscar despite winning $1 billion and getting nominated for some Oscars, is because the Barbie movie became a metaphor for being a woman in general. This corporate-approved, corporate-backed movie has become a touchstone of feminism, and to not praise it was tearing down the movement and tearing down people's like personal, it was like a personal slight. Like, oh, Barbie didn't win, like get nominated for like this. They're like, but you hate me? No, this is a movie. We're not talking about women. We're talking about the movie. It's just, identities are validated and intertwined with a product. And to call this out at all, this like weird association with feminism and things that you can buy, companies want you to view that as misogynistic because then they can keep making money. And then I go on fucking Tumblr and I see this, and I sent her a screenshot where it's like, actually, criticizing buying 100 Stanley Cups is misogynistic. Criticizing Taylor Swift is misogynistic. Margot Robbie not getting nominated for an Oscar is misogynistic. Saying that you don't like pink is misogynistic. Not wanting to wear makeup is internalized misogyny. Not liking rom-coms or romance novels is internalized misogyny. Thinking self-infantilization on the basis of it being an inherent trait of your gender is bad. That's internalized misogyny. These are the most pressing manifestations of misogyny. Can we spare a thought for any woman not waiting in line at a Starbucks? Listen, I love Taylor Swift, okay, clearly. And I like Barbie and rom-coms as much as the next person, but there is this unquestioning idea that girlhood is XYZ, usually available for purchase. And to disengage with this is actually doing like a disservice to yourself and not like accepting the sisterhood. Mm-hmm. And like CEOs are just probably fucking punching the air at their own marketing that like what they sell is integral to the feminine experience. And if you're like, actually, I think maybe like buying Stanley Cups just because everyone else has them is like bad, and just saying like, I'm just a girl, can someone explain politics to me? I'm a girl, I don't know what jobs are, I don't know what a car is, like that's actually kind of bad. Oh my god, you're woman, you hate fun. Why do you hate women having fun? It's actually a rite of passage to purchase little girly treats. It's a privilege to be able to spend money in girly ways. I'd hate to be a bitter pick-me without my corporate-approved spending! Yeah! And then, like, this kind of touches a little bit on, because everything touches everything, like, transphobia a little bit. Because then people are like, you can't buy womanhood. It comes with what? I'm like, then it, huh? Mm-hmm. And at the same time, if like a trans woman is like, actually, I am a woman, but I don't necessarily like pink or the girly aesthetic, they're just like, this just proves that you're not a real woman, because real women would like this and they'd buy this, and so then you have like more classically feminine trans women like Dylan Mulvaney, and people are like, you're just using womanhood as like a caricature of itself. You can't just purchase all these things and think that makes you a woman. It's like,
I also think there's another side of it too, where you have the like quote unquote like accepting activists, but like transness is only palatable to them when it's in a very clear-cut black and white way. It's like, okay, you're a trans woman, so you have to inherit these traits of what I deem like womanhood to mean.
Yeah.
And you have to look a very certain way, and you have to get these certain surgeries. But then it's like, if you're trans in any other way, then it's like, ugh, like, why are you doing that? Like, that's not, and it's like, you're only supportive of trans women who show up in this like very black and white way that you perceive like womanness to be.
To be trans is already to exist outside the gender binary, and it's like people only accept your transness if it's honestly like reinforcing the gender stereotypes of it all. It's like, all right, isn't that also like, yeah, I feel like I'm not actually, I feel more aligned with like this gender than I am. All right, cool, so that mean you like pink. Yeah. And that mean you like Hello Kitty, and that mean that you
have to wear skirts,
and you like cooking, and you like, then excuse? Huh? Rewatch Barbie again. But then, fine. Life isn't always coquette bows and iced coffees. It can be messy. It can be mental illness. It can be rotting in bed. It can be rage, right? Surely there isn't an effort to commercialize that aspect, right? Like, surely there are some aspects, the more unsavory elements of womanhood, that we can avoid merchandising, right? Foolish. How foolish.
Bamboozled again.
So this is a quote from, I got an article from The Guardian. It's like about fashion statement, mental health clothing, essentially. I'll, again, link in bio. Quote, "It has never been easier for consumers to flaunt their cultural allegiances through the clothes they wear. Now, a new category has entered the merchandise space, mental health. As with everything else, even psychological well-being can be commodified. Last year, in a series dedicated to the speculating trends for 2023, Retail Wire revealed mental health-oriented messaging is quickly becoming table stakes for retailers that cater to next-gen consumers." Psychologist Dr. Audrey Tang says, "A mental health issue is a diagnosis and a series of symptoms. It is not your identity." In 2019, the Gucci show opened with a series of models walking on a conveyor belt wearing what appeared to be a fashion take on straitjackets. In an unplanned protest, one of the models, Aisha Tan-Jones, held up their hands on which they had sprawled the words, "Mental health is not fashion." Afterwards, they posted a statement to their Instagram, "Presenting these struggles as props for selling clothes in today's capitalist climate is vulgar, unimaginative, and offensive to the millions of people around the world affected by these issues. So, is the commodification of mental health reductive? Russell says she wouldn't be terribly surprised if customers were buying medical-themed merchandise without actually experiencing the conditions. But, she says, no one is going to go to their doctor and say, I want this medication because I saw it on a t-shirt. So that's the thing. So, like, whatever. It's annoying and harmless and shit. But it just feels like every identity requires things to purchase, like a uniform. If you're gay, you wear this. There was, like, a weird push on TikTok that, like, non-binary people had to like frogs. They're like, you know you're non-binary if you have a frog and mushroom obsession. And I'm like,
sorry, what?
Yes. If, like, you know you're non-binary if you have 50 squishmallows. It's like, what the fuck are you saying? Lesbians have to have carabiners. Gay men wear chains. In order to be this, you need this. You're not a real X without buying Y. No one's going to know that you're Z without buying this. It doesn't even need to be accurate to you. It just needs to project a certain image to the public. Start with the picture that started it all. This is a quote from, this is like a personal blog, which is, I'm like, would you like to date me? If this is just what you think of day to day. It's like a personal blog entry from Rain Fisher Kwan, who's the author. It says, it's become very common for women online to express their identities through an artfully curated list of things they consume or aspire to consume. And because young women are conditioned to believe that their identities are defined almost entirely by their neuroses, these roundup of cultural trends and authors du jour often implicitly serve to chicly signal one's mental illnesses to the public. One girl on your TikTok feed might be a self-described Eve Babbitt's Marlboro Red straight-cut Levi's Fleabag girl. This means she has depression. Another will call herself a baby doll dress, Sylvia Plath, Red Scare, Mew Mew, Lana Del Rey girl, eating disorder. Or a green juice, claw clip, Emma Chamberlain, yoga mat podcast girl, a different eating disorder. The aesthetics of consumption have, in turn, become a conduit to make the self more easily consumable. Your existence as a type of girl has almost nothing to do with whether you actually read, wear a Mew Mew, and everything to do with whether you want to be seen as the type of person who would. And I'll throw up. Mom, I threw up. Hey, shut up. So that again, that like paragraph started this whole thing. But oh no, she keeps going. It's easy as a woman to compactify illness into a consumable package, to whittle at the edges of pathology until it becomes little more than smudged eyeliner and wild sex. Childhood trauma becomes daddy issues. Suicidal depression becomes mystique. Selling your pain is easier than living with it. Even when I am obsessively at my lowest, I am still filtering my experiences through the eyes of a consumer. The desire to editorialize our own experiences, to romanticize the unseen, to live for our autobiographies, has become an automatic facet of womanhood as unavoidable as breathing. Like the great mad women before me, I am spiraling into manic depressive chaos in a way that I will inevitably romanticize regardless of its material consequences, and self-mythologizing until I can make that feel like a good thing. I'm not unwell or self-destructive or entirely unbearable. I'm in my Fleabag era. We rationalize our own suffering through the romanticization of those who have suffered before us, and in turn, we provide a blueprint for the hot girl suffering of those after. We commodify that rationalization through the era-appropriate medium. For me, it's TikTok. And I understand the appeal. At first, relying on complex female characters, or the real women who we adopt as de facto fiction, like Sylvia Plath, to blueprint my neuroses was liberating. Eventually, though, it began to feel like a trap. If I can compare myself to just the right amount of things, place myself at the nexus of enough edgy, vaguely feminist media properties, will that eventually start to feel like actualization? I wonder what romantic love would feel like if I'd never seen a romantic comedy, if I'd been allowed to figure it out before a commodified version was fed to me. I wonder what my own illness would feel like. Now, as I put on mascara before crying so I'll look like the right kind of sad when I see myself in the mirror, I think about how nothing feels real at all if it doesn't look like the movies. But oh, it feels so good to be understood even when it's only as a caricature. This feeling is real because I have something to compare it to. I am in my Fleabag era. I'm in my yellow wallpaper era. I'm in my Phoebe Bridgers era. I am Fiona Apple. I am Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Do you get it now? Do you get it now? Try as I might, I can only seem to understand myself through the fictions of the more actualized, and just as I reassure myself that I am drawn to this media because of some predetermined inherent sense of self, I wonder if it is creating me too. Who would I be if I stopped consuming things? What would there be left to feel? We consume so much now that perhaps we don't know what it means to exist without something unsellable. I had to give up journaling because I couldn't stop writing for the people who would read it after I was dead.
I feel like, and like, once again, there's nuance to everything, and like all of these things are so complicated, but I feel like it's especially complex because, like, obviously representation matters, and like it is so important to have access to like images of people who it feels like they're going through what you're going through, and to have something relatable to look to when it feels like no one around you could possibly understand like what you're going through, you know. And I feel like all those things are important, and it is important to have those things in media. But that point at the end where it's like, am I, like, is it projecting onto me? Because there's that typical thing of like, okay, I am projecting my own experiences onto this media and then relating to it in that way. But then there's the other hand where it's like, oh, I am looking at this media as a way to guide me and to show what I am supposed to feel and what I'm supposed to look like because I like relate to this character or this person. And there's that idea of like, you know, mental illnesses is you know, fun and like an aesthetic
and
when,
sexy.
Yeah, when you're like messy. But once you get gross,
yeah,
then it's like, ugh, like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Brush your teeth. Daddy issues are supposed to give like good head. You're not supposed to like sob at the idea of someone leaving you. Hey, that's not.
Hey. And it's like there's this romanticization of all of these different things and aspects that like aren't fun. Like they're not fun to go through. And I think in a way it is important to have these things because it does provide comfort, right?
I'm not alone.
Yeah. It is very comforting to have things that you can relate to in that way. But it's like when in order to relate to it, you have to buy things and like curate the specific image of yourself. Like that's not relating to it anymore. That's changing yourself and your own identity to now fit into this image that has been created for you.
Correct. Ouch. Hey, so all of that entire blog was probably one of the most relatable things I've ever fucking read in my life. But the ending sentiment that she had was haunting. Who would I be if I stopped consuming things? What would there be left to feel? And like, hey, that's the thesis of the episode. Back off. But I wonder if we're just so used to like I said earlier about how like media itself has just become so like easily digestible, and everything like that's messy and larger than life has to be distilled into sellable things, just like how mental illnesses can be this overarching small swirling vortexes of messy and complicated. But no, it's not. It can be a slogan. It can be something. It can be a cute bumper sticker. It can be a t-shirt. It can be a beanie. It can be like a poster. It can be this giant unquantifiable brain rot can actually be a hoodie. What if we're just so used to compartmentalizing complex issues into content that we see our own lives through that same lens because that's all that we've been trained to do? In the end, are we the product? Am I a character? And like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to point to that like male fantasies, like Margaret Atwood quote again. I'm talking about like a male fantasy, but there's a point in that quote. Even pretending you aren't catering to male fantasies is a male fantasy. Pretending you're unseen. Pretending that you have a life of your own. That you can wash your feet and comb your hair unconscious of the ever-present watcher peering through the keyhole in your own head if nowhere else. You are a woman with a man inside watching a woman. You are your own voyeur. I'm going to kill myself on camera. I just, yet again, it blows my mind how I think that I've come up with like something that no one else has ever thought before, and then I just read anything and I'm like, again, like you were saying, representation is so important because I'm like, am I dumb? And then actually, no, this is just like, maybe not feminism 101 because that's Barbie, but maybe feminism 102 where it's like, we've been here before, darling. But yeah, it just feels like our brains are just so used to personhood when it's attached to media, you know, music, books, TV shows, podcasts even, that we have our own audience inside our heads watching and reacting to us, even in our most private moments. Like, I'll catch myself if I'm crying. Am I crying in a hot way? Like, I am at home, like, typing away at this laptop. Is my double chin showing? Like, I feel like I am always performing. And no bueno. I'm not allowed privacy at any given point. Again, like earlier in the article, as opposed to like generations past, there's just this underlying thing of like, you're never alone, good or bad. Like, yeah, you're always being listened to. There's always your social life is going on, whether or not you are engaged with it or not. You never have a moment of true privacy, which is, doesn't that just make you feel nice and toasty? Nice and warm inside? Because then, like, we never want to get caught in like an unflattering moment, so I can catch myself always performing in a way, which is not good for myself. So what now? All right, so what? You know, I talk all this mad shit. We're so tied to consumerism that we don't have personalities. Now what? Do we become monks? Do we give up all earthly pleasures and find no joy in community and stop liking things? Fuck no. Life is hard. And we're, again, at that stage of capitalism that we need capitalism to feel any joy anymore. I need trinkets and treats to make life worth living. And for you, if that means having a baby tee that says daddy issues on it, so be it. Whatever keeps you here. But I think, personally, I'm starting to really unpack what it means to be me. Like, not the me who enjoys things, and not me who, like, curates aesthetics, or, like, me who, like, needs explanations or, like, a label for everything. But, like, who am I outside of what I can consume? And I think the first step of that is to try to stop being so aware of myself all the goddamn time. I got another banger quote for you. Man shouldn't be able to see his own face. There's nothing more sinister. Nature gave him the gift of not being able to see it, and of not being able to stare into his own eyes. Only in the waters and rivers and ponds could he look at his face, and the very posture he had to assume was symbolic. He had to bend over, stoop down, and commit the shame or disgrace of beholding himself. The inventor of the mirror poisoned the human heart. Fernando Pessoa. Hey.
Stop that.
Which, like, yeah. And, like, yeah, you could go all, like, men's rights activist and be like, men do that too. Sure. Yeah. But who's more... Who has more pressure? Who has more pressure to be aesthetically pleasing? And, like, same, like, even the you know, mental health is fashion, like, they didn't necessarily say it was gendered at all, but, like, are men necessarily walking around saying, like, I take Prozac on, like, a t-shirt? No, it's more than likely a feminine thing, because we just love to shop. And again, look at that, a stereotype associated with womanhood is they just love be shopping, but, like, they... Yeah. They just... Anyway. Spiraling aside, I've been trying to allow myself the freedom to exist. And then I'm also just trying to, like, silence that, like, inner audience that I just have in my stupid fucking head 100% of the time. But another part of this is acting on an idea that I truly believe in, that, and again, I'm not about to fucking blow minds probably, but the idea is personhood. It's not what we covet, it's what we give. You know, I am not what I can consume. I am not an aesthetic. I'm not a collection of neuroses. I'm not what I can buy. I'm not a girl kisser. What can I provide for free? How can I spread me out? How can I exist within my own mind and not feel pressured to spend money to adhere to an idea of who I should be? Who am I if I'm not trying to constantly present myself, feeling the need to create a character? You even mentioned this on, like, dating apps too. All we do is sell ourselves, and not in, like, the sell your body. It's so Instagram is, if a girl is an Instagram, that's modern day prostitution, Andrew Tate.
Well, but it's like, how desirable can I make this image of myself? And it's the same thing. It's like, even if you're not catering to people on like a romantic level, like through Instagram, you're still catering to like your peers, and you're like, I want them to see me as a cool and interesting individual. What images of my life and images of myself, and what things can I do and take pictures of that will present and give the impression of like how I want people to perceive me.
Correct. Yeah. And it's like, not to quote Dear Evan Hansen on Maine of all things, stone me immediately, but even like shit like that, that's embarrassing. I don't want to be associated with Dear Evan Hansen, but I'm about to quote it anyway because it's prevalent to the conversation. But I'm like, don't judge me. I know it's a shitty musical about like that.
Listen, I kind of like Dear Evan Hansen. Maybe not the movie version, but like I think the actual musical's kind of good.
But there's a line in here where, like, honestly, again, Dear Evan Hansen's not my favorite, but the first time I heard this song, I had to pause it and I went, oh, and I like out loud, I went, oh, and it was the, you don't need to sell me on reasons to want you. You don't need, so what is it? You don't have to sell me on reasons to want you. I don't need you to search for the proof that I should.
Sorry, I just got goosebumps. The amount of times that I have sobbed to Dear Evan Hansen. Sorry about it. It's interesting. I think this is a little different from the consumption idea, but I feel like this idea of perception kind of bleeds into everything. And like I was telling Skyler earlier, I had a very impactful therapy session yesterday. And one of the things I was kind of talking to my therapist about was how I feel like there is not a lot of space for me in my life to be emotional, and how I have this perception of myself, and I feel like my friends and the people around me have this perception of me where like I'm the logical one, I'm the rock. But she basically was like, well, what would happen if that like image was broken? And I was like, what do you mean?
Hey.
Yeah, and she was like, well, what if you were emotional? And I was like, but I can't be. Like, what do you mean? And it's just like this whole idea of I feel like I feel unsafe if I don't have a grasp of how other people perceive me, and I feel unsafe if I am not constantly adhering to that perception and like constantly reinforcing it. And I think that ties back into consumerism of like a method of safety, right? It's like I feel better if I have a little box that I can like identify within. Like I feel like this goes so much deeper than like just consumption, and I don't know if this is necessarily like an issue that has just been prominent in our present day. I think when it comes to media and just the large scale on which we now can be perceived because of social media, I think it definitely like exasperates the issue and makes it feel much larger. Well, because it is much larger, you know, than it once was. When before it's like, oh, I only have to worry about like what my neighbors think of me and like what my classmates think of me and, you know, things like that, where now it's like, okay, what does the entire internet think about me? Like, how can I make sure that my identity is not misconstrued to strangers?
No, because I remember I think it was like I don't remember when it was, maybe it was my freshman year of college or something, when I had like my first little like crisis of person moment. I think it was like around Christmas or so, and because all the gifts I had gotten were like fandom related and whatnot, and I was talking about this with my dad, and I remember just being like if you were to give me a gift right now, like, it was because I was like kind of disappointed that like the fandoms that I had been gifted, like I hadn't really been a part of in a while. And it's that classic like kidhood of like, they don't know me at all. But I was talking to my dad and I was like, how would you like describe me to like someone, a stranger? And he just was, Harry Potter, I don't know, Doctor Who. And I'm like, no. I remember telling him like, no, not the things that I like how would you describe like what like other things outside of, and he was like, what are you asking me? Reading? I don't know. And I'm like, no, like me, God. Yeah. And not to like, you know, I'm not saying that to like be like throw my dad under the bus or anything, but it was just that was the first moment where I was like, is that all I am? Is I am at the time Harry Potter? I was Doctor Who. I was the things that I liked. And I think even like No, the people that don't get to talk to me that often, that's kind of the only way that they get to see me is like through the things that I am. And I remember thinking the other day in a classic spirally fashion of like staring at the ceiling and like is like, so the solution to this outside of capitalism, right, is like imagine a fictional world in where we're like no one has a face and everyone just has like, you know, masks all the time and you can't really tell what people look like and we're all given like exactly the same like things to watch and like it's all the same, everything is uniform. What would make me different than the person next to me or the person next to them? And then I really be like, who am I? Like am I what? And then trying to find words to describe that has been my agony for this past week.
Well, obviously we can tie everything back to your zodiac sign, so I don't know.
Damn it, you're right.
Astrology is the answer, guys.
That's why I needed to talk to you. And then another podcast callback. This would feel like was a great penultimate episode. I feel like we're tying back to so many of our previous episodes. Am I just hating on Twilight? Is this all that I am? And remember, I quoted Jack Van Ack earlier about, like, you are the books that you read, you are, like, the movies that you watch, and you are what you take from this, whatever. There's a second half of that quote. The second half of it is, you are the sound of the ocean, breath of the fresh air, the brightest light, and the darkest corner. You are a collective of every experience you've had in your life. You are every single second of every day. So drown yourself in a sea of knowledge and existence. Let the words run through your veins and the colors fill your mind until there is nothing left to do but explode. And I'm like, damn, that's deep.
I think I like
I think I like this little life. But yeah, it's just we've gone a little existential in our penultimate, but yeah, it was just like it's a weird and I don't know if I can blame this on me being 25 and on my brain just swelling with newfound knowledge. But I think looking back on me as a person, I'm trying to kind of figure out who I am. And before, you know, everyone's like, oh, 20 is about figuring out who you are. Before I figured out like my personality and the things that I like. And now I'm doing the even cooler, harder work of being like, all right, outside of the things that you like. And I think I'm reminded of this every time I talk to someone who like doesn't know me that well, or maybe like a family member who hasn't spoken to me that recently, where all they know of me is my interest that I had when I was like 17. My mom thinks that I'm still in love with Pedro Pascal. And I'm like, that was so 2020. That was so when The Mandalorian came out. That's a little bit not her fault because she doesn't get TikTok. She gets Instagram Reels. So this is the first time she's seeing Pedro Pascal thirst edits. And I'm like, fuck, huh? That was a while ago. Half those edits are muted now because of the fucking TikTok music agreement. So I was like, a little late on the trend. And then, I don't know, there's just something that feels kind of isolating about someone being like, so, have you seen they might reboot Sherlock. How are you feeling about that? Or they're like, so you've seen the new Marvel movie, right? You're like a Marvel girl. And me being like, oh, God, no. Mm-hmm. Oh, and you don't know me at all. Yeah, the feminine urge to just be known.
It's that idea of like, wow, can't people just immediately understand exactly who I am without having to reveal any personal details and like having to relive like these giant moments in my life that made me who I am today? Like, I don't want to do that. Like, can't you just know?
Can't I just like
can't you just get that vibe?
Like, can't I just have like a Pinterest like cork board of like Lana Del Rey, like Coca-Cola, Priscilla Presley looking, you know, cigarette. Can't that just be me? Mm-hmm. That seems so much easier to become a character with similar traits to me than actually be weird me. Don't want it. Mm-hmm. Won't do it, but I must for the sake of personhood. Any flute. Yeah. That's been my episode. A little bit less Professor Skyler than my usual spiel. I feel like we got a little bit into Professor Skyler. I got a little bit into the drugs again, and started unraveling.
It's okay. You're in your Fleabag era. All All right. Thank you guys so much for listening, and tune in next week for a very, very special final episode. What?
A finale, in a way.
We are available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube if you want to see the video versions. And we will see you next week. Bye.
Bye.